The morning sun, usually a welcome harbinger of a new day, felt like a cruel spotlight that day, illuminating the cracks in what I believed to be an unshakable foundation. Our home, once a sanctuary filled with the laughter of our children and the quiet comfort of shared dreams, now echoed with an unfamiliar silence, heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah, my wife, the woman I had built my entire world around, the mother of my children, was a stranger in our familiar space. Her eyes, once pools of warmth and affection, now held a distant, guarded look, a reflection of a journey she had taken without me. I remember the scent of her perfume, a fragrance I had always associated with intimacy and home, now carrying a faint, almost imperceptible undertone of something foreign, something that pricked at my subconscious. Our two children, Lily and Tom, were oblivious, their innocent faces a stark contrast to the storm brewing within the walls of our marriage. Lily, with her bright, inquisitive eyes, was busy drawing a picture of our family, a perfect, smiling tableau that felt like a grotesque mockery of our reality. Tom, ever the energetic whirlwind, was building a towering structure of blocks, each piece precariously balanced, much like the delicate structure of my own life. I watched them, my heart a tight knot of apprehension, a premonition of the seismic shift that was about to occur. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable tension that permeated every corner of our lives, a silent testament to the unraveling that was already underway. This wasn't just a bad day, it was the precipice of a new, unwelcome chapter, a chapter one never anticipated writing, one that would redefine everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and my own identity. I'm not some historian, no celebrated author, nothing like that. I'm just an ordinary guy who went through some seriously rough patches and decided to get it all out. I lived through the events I'm about to recount, didn't read them in a book or see them on TV. And honestly, I think my perspective is different because I was right there, in the middle of the storm. I saw the whole thing crumble, felt the pain, the anger, the disappointment deep in my bones. And, most importantly, I learned some lessons that only life can teach you. Don't expect an unbiased narrative, because you won't get one. This is my story, told my way, with my emotions. And if you connect with anything, if you feel a lump in your throat or a tightness in your chest, it's because life is tough for everyone, right? But we keep going, one day at a time. And that's what matters. My gaze lingered on them, a knot of dread tightening in my chest, a chilling premonition of the seismic shift about to occur. The atmosphere crackled with an unspoken anticipation, a palpable tension that seeped into every corner of our existence, a silent witness to the unraveling that had already begun. This wasn't just a bad day, it was the edge of a new, unwelcome chapter, one I never imagined would be written, a chapter that would reshape everything I believed about love, about trust, and about who I truly was. The ground beneath us felt unstable, shifting with a subtle tremor that belied the monumental upheaval brewing. I could sense the subtle tremors of impending change, a quiet disintegration of the familiar world I had taken for granted. It was the kind of shift that doesn't announce itself with fanfare, but rather with a series of small, almost imperceptible cracks that, when pieced together, reveal the foundation has been compromised. This was not merely a passing storm, it was the dawn of a new, unwelcome era, an era I had never prepared for, one that would fundamentally alter my understanding of affection, fidelity, and my own sense of self. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with an unspoken dread, a silent acknowledgement that the familiar landscape was about to give way to something unknown and potentially perilous. The perfection I'd built, the polished facade of a life so many envied, began to fray at the edges. It started subtly, with a shift in her gaze, a distant quality that suggested her thoughts were elsewhere. The shared laughter, once a constant melody in our home, became punctuated by long silences, pregnant with unspoken words. I, blinded by my own perceived success and the comfortable routine, initially dismissed these changes as trivial, the normal ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. After all, we had the house, the car, the stable jobs, the tangible markers of a life well lived. What else could there possibly be to desire? Then came the late nights. Initially, they were explained away with plausible work demands, an ambitious project, a critical deadline. I accepted these explanations without question, my trust in her unwavering. My own days were filled with the predictable rhythm of my career, a comforting predictability that, in hindsight, made me complacent. I was so focused on maintaining the outward appearance of our idyllic existence that I failed to notice the slow erosion happening beneath the surface. The genuine connection, the deep understanding that had once bound us, was being replaced by a polite courtesy, a superficial harmony that masked the growing chasm. The feeling of unease, however, became a persistent hum in the background of my consciousness. I found myself replaying conversations, scrutinizing casual remarks, searching for clues I hadn't seen before. It was like waking up in a familiar room, only to realize that the furniture had been rearranged during the night. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt quite right. I began to question the very foundation of our life together, the shared dreams and aspirations that had once felt so solid. The we that I had always taken for granted started to feel like an I and a she, two separate entities drifting further apart with each passing day. The realization that my perception of our reality was fundamentally flawed was a bitter pill to swallow. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, usually a comforting backdrop to my thoughts, now felt like a dull throb, mirroring the persistent ache in my chest. It was the subtle shifts that were the most unsettling. The way she no longer reached for my hand during our evening walks, her fingers instead finding the smooth surface of her phone. The way our conversations, once a lively exchange of ideas and dreams, had devolved into polite acknowledgments of daily routines, devoid of the passion that had once defined us. I found myself meticulously observing these tiny fractures, each one a tiny betrayal of the us I believed we were. I started seeking refuge in the familiar comfort of our shared albums, flipping through pages filled with sun-drenched holidays and laughter-filled gatherings. Each photograph was a stark reminder of a time when our connection felt effortless, when our gazes met with an unspoken understanding. Now, looking at those frozen moments, I felt a pang of something akin to nostalgia for a past that was rapidly becoming a stranger. The woman in the pictures, her eyes sparkling with shared joy, felt like a ghost, a whisper of the person I once knew so intimately. One evening, while she was engrossed in a documentary about distant galaxies, I found myself staring at her profile, tracing the familiar curve of her cheekbone. A question, unbidden and sharp, pierced through the silence: had she always been this distant, or was this a recent transformation? The truth, I suspected, lay somewhere in the nuanced interplay of our individual journeys, a narrative that had quietly diverged without either of us consciously acknowledging the shift. This dawning awareness brought with it a quiet resolve. The comfortable ignorance was no longer an option. I understood that genuine connection, like any living thing, required constant tending, a willingness to nurture and adapt. The question wasn't whether our foundation was flawed, but rather if there was still enough shared soil to allow for new growth, or if the roots had already withered beyond repair. The answer, I knew, wouldn't be found in passive observation, but in a difficult, yet necessary, conversation. My attempts to impose order, to find a logical solution for what was clearly a seismic shift in emotional terrain, were proving futile. I'd spent countless evenings poring over relationship advice books, highlighting passages, drawing diagrams of communication breakdowns, as if a well-annotated strategy could somehow force a recalibration of her heart. It was the engineer in me, I suppose, always looking for the schematic, the blueprint for a fixed reality. But love, I was learning with painful clarity, operated on an entirely different set of principles, ones not found in textbooks or on blueprints. The societal currents of the time, with their relentless emphasis on personal fulfillment and the allure of uncharted territories, had seeped into the very foundations of our home, creating an invisible chasm between us. It was a quiet erosion, a gradual drifting apart that I had willfully failed to acknowledge, preferring the comfort of our established routine to the unsettling truth of her changing gaze. The subtle shifts in her demeanor were no longer ignorable whispers. They had become a persistent hum that resonated through our shared spaces. The easy laughter that once filled our kitchen had been replaced by a guarded quiet, and the shared glances that spoke volumes were now brief, almost perfunctory. I recall one particular evening, during a family dinner where the conversation felt as stilted as a forced business meeting. Her eyes, usually so warm and familiar, held a distant, almost wistful spark. It was a look that hinted at horizons I hadn't considered, at dreams she might be nurturing that no longer included me as their central architect. The realization dawned, slow and heavy, that my carefully constructed edifice of marital contentment was built on a foundation of assumptions, not on the shared, evolving reality of two people deeply connected. My instinct to analyze and to fix was like trying to mend a torn sail with a soldering iron. The tools were fundamentally incompatible with the task at hand. I'd been treating our relationship like a complex piece of machinery, expecting that with the right adjustments, the gears would seamlessly re-engage. But the missing component wasn't mechanical, it was the intangible essence of shared experience, of mutual understanding and emotional resonance that had, for reasons I was only beginning to grasp, begun to falter. The freedom that so many seemed to be chasing, had subtly altered her perception of our shared life, and my unwavering adherence to the familiar, to the established order, was, in effect, holding her back. The silence in my former home became a constant, oppressive weight. It wasn't just the absence of laughter or conversation, it was the echoing void where shared moments once resided. My wife's departure left behind a chasm, and into that chasm tumbled everything I held dear. The familiar walls of our house, once a sanctuary, now felt alien and cold. Each object, from the chipped coffee mug by the sink to the worn armchair where we'd read together, served as a stark reminder of what was lost. Financial stability, once a bedrock of our shared future, dissolved like sand through my fingers, the consequence of a life suddenly fractured and unbalanced. My children, the very reason for my world's existence, became strangers. Their young eyes, once filled with trust and affection for me, now held a bewildering mix of resentment and accusation. The subtle whispers and guiding hands of their mother, amplified by her own pain and perhaps a desire to shield them from the harsh realities, had irrevocably altered their perspective. They saw me not as a flawed but loving father, but as the cause of their upheaval, the architect of their pain. This alienation was perhaps the sharpest blow, a wound that bled into every aspect of my fractured existence, leaving me adrift without the anchor of their love. I found myself a solitary figure in a world that suddenly felt too large and too indifferent. The support systems I'd taken for granted, the comfort of family, the camaraderie of friends, had fractured under the strain of my personal implosion. Some friends, caught in the crossfire, retreated, unable or unwilling to navigate the tempest. Others, their words well-intentioned but ultimately hollow, offered platitudes that did little to mend the deep fissures within me. I was left to confront the wreckage alone, a profound sense of abandonment settling over me like a shroud, leaving me without the solid ground I had always known. The ripple effect of this personal devastation spread outwards, impacting not just my immediate family but the wider circle of our lives. The family unit, once a symbol of unity and shared purpose, was irrevocably broken. The pain inflicted upon my children was a burden I carried daily, a constant ache in my soul, witnessing their confusion and distress. The disappointment etched on the faces of friends, who had perhaps envisioned a different trajectory for our lives, was a heavy testament to the magnitude of the collapse. The impact was not fleeting, it was a deep, enduring scar, a transformation that reshaped the landscape of my life in ways I could never have anticipated. This profound experience has etched a brutal lesson into my being. It's a lesson learned not in classrooms or through gentle guidance, but in the crucible of loss and despair. I've come to understand, with a chilling clarity, that the most potent forces in human relationships are not always those of affection or shared history. Love, in its purest form, can be a powerful current, but it cannot, it seems, always overcome the tides of individual change. People evolve, their desires and perspectives shift, often in ways that are beyond anyone's control. Sometimes, despite our deepest efforts, the bonds that once seemed unbreakable simply loosen, and there is an agonizing helplessness in that realization. The future, once a bright horizon, had become an uncertain, shadowed path. The historical significance of this narrative lies in its echo through countless homes daily. Betrayal, divorce, the fragmentation of families, these are common occurrences, yet their pain remains profound. The lesson learned is that life is inherently unpredictable, demanding a constant readiness to face adversity. My worldview has been irrevocably altered. The fanciful notions of fairy tales have given way to a stark, unflinching confrontation with reality, acknowledging its inherent imperfections. In this new perspective, I've learned to cherish the fundamental elements of existence, the unwavering support of friendship, the bedrock of honesty, and the genuine warmth of true love. This profound shift wasn't an overnight revelation, but a gradual unfolding, like the slow bloom of a resilient flower pushing through hardened soil. It began with the quiet moments of reflection after the initial storm had passed, when the dust settled and the silence was filled with the weight of what had transpired. I started noticing small acts of kindness in the world around me, the way a stranger might offer a helping hand, or a neighbor might share a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of shared human experience. These were not grand gestures, but they were anchors, grounding me when the waves of uncertainty threatened to pull me under. The realization that life's tapestry is woven with threads of both joy and sorrow, strength and fragility, became a guiding principle. It freed me from the burden of expecting perpetual happiness and allowed me to appreciate the fleeting moments of peace and contentment all the more keenly. The pursuit of an idealized existence, once my sole focus, was replaced by a more grounded appreciation for the present. I found solace in the simple rhythms of daily life, the morning sun filtering through the window, the laughter of children playing, the comforting aroma of a shared meal. These weren't substitutes for the grand dreams I once held, but rather, they were the sturdy foundation upon which a new, more authentic sense of well-being could be built. My capacity for empathy deepened, recognizing that behind every stoic face, every hurried stride, there often lay a story as complex and challenging as my own. This understanding fostered a sense of quiet connection with humanity, a feeling that, despite our individual struggles, we were all navigating the unpredictable currents of existence together. The historical significance of this narrative lies in its recurring echo within countless homes daily. Betrayal, divorce, and the subsequent disintegration of families, while tragically common, do not diminish their profound pain. The enduring lesson absorbed is the sheer unpredictability of life, necessitating a constant readiness to confront adversity. My worldview underwent a profound metamorphosis. The rose-tinted glasses of fairy tales were irrevocably shattered, replaced by a clear-eyed embrace of reality, acknowledging its inherent imperfections. This newfound perspective illuminated the profound value of life's simpler elements, the unwavering support of friendship, the bedrock of honesty, and the genuine warmth of true love. This shift in perspective wasn't an overnight transformation but a slow, deliberate unearthing of a more resilient self. The initial shock of shattered illusions gave way to a quiet determination to rebuild, not on the flimsy foundations of fantasy, but on the solid ground of self-reliance and a keen appreciation for authentic human connection. It was like learning to walk again, each step tentative but purposeful, guided by an internal compass recalibrated by experience. The idealized notions of perfect unions and eternally happy endings were replaced by a more nuanced understanding of relationships, acknowledging their fragility and the continuous effort required to nurture them. The realization that life rarely adhered to neat, predictable storylines was a sobering one. Yet, paradoxically, it also brought a sense of liberation. The pressure to conform to a preordained narrative dissolved, making space for a more fluid and authentic way of being. It meant accepting that setbacks were not failures, but rather integral parts of a richer, more complex tapestry of existence. This acceptance allowed for a greater capacity for forgiveness, both of others and, perhaps more importantly, of oneself. The hard-won wisdom became a silent mentor, whispering encouragement during moments of doubt and reminding me that even in the face of profound loss, the capacity for growth and renewal remained. This personal evolution fostered a deeper wellspring of empathy, extending beyond the immediate circle of friends and family to encompass the broader human experience. Recognizing that every individual carries their own unseen burdens, their own silent battles, created a profound sense of shared humanity. It was no longer about finding solace in individual triumphs, but in the collective resilience that allowed us to persevere, to love, and to find moments of joy even amidst life's inevitable storms. This quiet understanding became a constant companion, a gentle reminder that even in isolation, we were never truly alone. The historical significance of this narrative lies in its pervasive echo across countless homes, day after day. Betrayal, the dissolution of marriages, and the fragmentation of families are unfortunately common occurrences, yet their pain remains no less acute. The fundamental lesson gleaned is life's inherent unpredictability, underscoring the necessity of cultivating preparedness to navigate adversity. My worldview underwent a seismic shift. The enchantment of fairy tales was replaced by a clear-eyed confrontation with reality, embracing its inherent imperfections. This reorientation fostered a profound appreciation for life's simpler elements, the steadfastness of friendship, the integrity of honesty, and the enduring power of genuine love. This newfound perspective didn't manifest as a descent into cynicism, but rather as a grounded realism that allowed for a deeper, more authentic experience of life. The absence of naive expectations meant that moments of happiness, however small, were savored with a greater intensity. A shared laugh over a simple meal, the warmth of a supportive embrace, the quiet comfort of knowing someone truly understood, these became the cornerstones of my renewed sense of peace. The grand gestures and unattainable ideals of the past faded, replaced by the tangible, the accessible, the truly meaningful. It was in the everyday interactions, in the quiet acts of kindness, that the profound beauty of human connection began to reveal itself. Furthermore, this understanding prompted a revision of my own internal compass. No longer was I seeking validation or happiness from external, often fleeting sources. Instead, the locus of control shifted inwards. The capacity for resilience, for finding joy within, became the paramount skill. This involved actively cultivating gratitude, acknowledging the good that persisted even when circumstances were challenging. It meant recognizing that while life could indeed deliver devastating blows, it also possessed an immense capacity for healing and growth. The scars, though present, became testaments to survival, not symbols of defeat. This journey fostered a profound empathy. Witnessing others navigate their own struggles, stripped of the pretense of perfection, created an immediate and visceral connection. The shared vulnerability, the unspoken acknowledgement of shared human frailty, became a powerful balm. It was through this lens of shared experience that the true richness of life was discovered. The tapestry of human existence, it turned out, was woven not from flawless threads, but from the intricate, often messy, but always beautiful interplay of triumphs and tribulations, of love and loss, of hope and resilience. The historical significance of this narrative lies in its stark reflection of a reality that unfolds in countless homes daily. Betrayal, the dissolution of marriages, and the fracturing of families are not isolated incidents but common occurrences. While their frequency might lend a sense of inevitability, it does not diminish the profound pain they inflict. The critical lesson gleaned from such experiences is the inherent unpredictability of life itself, underscoring the imperative to cultivate resilience and prepare for inevitable adversities. This realization fundamentally reshaped my worldview. The idealized narratives of fairy tales gave way to a pragmatic embrace of reality, acknowledging its inherent imperfections. Consequently, a profound appreciation for life's simpler, yet more meaningful elements, the steadfastness of friendship, the integrity of honesty, and the genuine depth of true love, began to blossom within me. This shift in perspective allowed for a deeper understanding of human connection. Witnessing the struggles of others, and in turn, sharing my own, forged a bond that transcended superficial acquaintances. It was in acknowledging our shared vulnerabilities that true solidarity emerged. This collective experience taught me that the richness of life is not measured by the absence of hardship, but by the strength found in navigating its complexities. The intricate weave of human existence, I discovered, is composed not of pristine, unbroken strands, but of the complex, often tangled, yet undeniably beautiful intermingling of successes and setbacks, of profound affection and poignant separation, of persistent optimism and unwavering fortitude. Each thread, no matter how frayed or vibrant, contributes to the unique and compelling pattern of our individual and collective journeys. This profound understanding fostered a renewed sense of purpose, guiding me to approach each day with a more grounded and compassionate outlook, ready to face whatever challenges and joys lay ahead. This transformative experience has reshaped me in ways I could never have anticipated. I've emerged as a stronger, more resilient individual, acutely aware of my own emotional landscape. The journey taught me the vital importance of prioritizing self-love, of detaching from the need for external validation, and of persevering even when all hope seems to have vanished. The wisdom gleaned from this period is clear: life is a dynamic voyage, not a static destination. What truly matters isn't the events themselves, but rather our personal response to them. Ultimately, the greatest rewards are inner peace and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've given your utmost effort. The tapestry of my existence, once feeling tattered and uncertain, now reveals itself as intricate and purposeful. Each challenge, each setback, each moment of unexpected joy has woven itself into a rich design, contributing to a narrative far grander than I could have initially comprehended. This newfound perspective has ignited a renewed sense of purpose, prompting me to greet each dawn with a more centered and empathetic disposition, prepared to embrace the unfolding spectrum of experiences. The lessons learned have become ingrained, shaping my interactions and my understanding of the world around me. I now understand that healing isn't about erasing scars, but about integrating them into a more robust self. These marks, once sources of pain, are now testaments to survival and growth. They remind me of the storms weathered and the strength discovered within. This acceptance has liberated me, allowing for a more authentic expression of self, unburdened by past regrets or future anxieties. The present moment has become a space of profound appreciation, a gift to be savored and utilized with intention and grace. Moving forward, my focus remains on continuous learning and embracing the unpredictable nature of life. I approach new situations with an open heart and a clear mind, understanding that every encounter offers an opportunity for growth. The pursuit of knowledge, the cultivation of meaningful connections, and the unwavering commitment to my own well-being form the cornerstones of my ongoing journey. I am no longer defined by what has happened, but by the continuous unfolding of who I am becoming. This ongoing evolution, filled with its own unique set of challenges and triumphs, is a testament to the enduring power of human resilience and the beauty of a life lived with purpose and an open spirit.